Have you had the thought that if people could just understand where you were coming from or how you were thinking about things, it would be better? What if you discovered that your assumptions about another person were incorrect and you've been pulling back from the relationship because of this miscommunication? How do we begin to understand how the opposite sex or the relationships in our lives are thinking or feeling? My guest today, Barbara Cole Salmeron, is a relationship illumination specialist who thrives on providing a roadmap for communication between the sexes, with friendships, and with colleagues. She demystifies the assumptions that have been a part of our history over the last century, and she's pulling us forward into a new set of strategies to help us with our relationship building. Barbara is more than just a talk therapy kind of coach, but rather someone who understands the energetic connection that people make, and she uses tools such as gongs and frequency, as well as energy tools to open a flow of communication and comfort for building thriving and enriching exchanges. You're listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This is sponsored by the Cape Breton Tea Company and Dance Debut Inc. Please welcome Barbara Cole Salmeron to the show. Welcome, Barbara. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Michelle. Happy to be here.
So before we begin our conversation, I want to get the intention started for our listeners. So from my affirmations for the body and biofield deck, which you can find in the shop at dancedebut.com, I'm just holding up the card for those on the podcast who can't see. It's a black card and it has the picture of a ribbon of color on the front. And the image that was created by Tanya Levy is about child and baby. That's how she describes it. And so this is our opportunity to find where we're nurtured and how we can be nurturing to others. And so I just bring that idea forward from the deck, but then I'm going to pull the card from Meeting the Divine. So I'm going to put this to the screen for those again on the podcast. This has got a visual of pink, purple, yellow, white. There's a sphere and kind of some layers of geometrical shapes within it. And that comes from the nature that was originally photographed for this. So this is for the chakra, chakra 12, which is in the auric field, the outside edge of who we are. And it's in relay 3, which is our relationship to how we receive information outside of ourselves and then bring that in towards us. And the affirmation is, miracles happen every day in every way. Invite miracles to your dinner table and then feast on the bounty of the harvest. So as we talk today with Barbara about the skills that she has, the way that she communicates with people and helps people understand communication, if you think about those miracles that you could start to create at your dinner table in conversation, in activities that you do together, we hope that this will expand then the energy that you're starting to feel and sense for yourself. Okay, any comments to that, Barbara?
Beautiful. I love those cards. I'll need to get those decks. I don't have those yet. Those are beautiful.
And the deck there's 4 parts to it. So we can go into we can go right into the body, or we can come to the outside into the biofield, which is really fun to play around with. And all of the pictures on it are pictures of nature. So we're always grounding in those 5 elements, bringing everything around into fruition. Okay, so Barbara, did you bring a cup of intention, a mug of tea today?
I have one right here. Yep.
All right. And it says, I love my cat.
They may make an appearance because they don't often leave me alone when I'm doing these interviews. So we've got 3 of them here.
Oh, lovely. And what kind of tea do you have inside that mug?
I have this morning decaf chai. That's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Is it a spicy?
Yeah, it's got those warming chai spices. I like that in the morning. Helps me feel cozy and warm.
Perfect. And today I was in a similar, thinking along that similar warmth kind of feel. So I went to one of the black teas that comes from the Cape Breton Tea Company, and this is Marvelous Miss Maple. And it is a black tea, but it's been mellowed with hints of honey that comes from the honeybush plant. And so I always like to think about that one for that same nourishing kind of effect. And then you have the feel of maple syrup. And for those people that could be listening from places where they can't get maple syrup, that's a hot commodity here, especially after the last rainstorms that took out some of our maple trees. So we just, it's a golden elixir, and it's highly valued, the maple syrup. And I chose today, I was thinking about you, Barbara. So a friend of mine had given me this cup, which has bachelor buttons on it. And I talked about it on one other episode, but the bachelor button was a flower that men used to put in their lapels to tell women that they were available. And so
Very
that's
cool.
how boutonnieres came to be for weddings. So anyway, I was thinking about you in relationships and understanding the other side, and I was thinking, okay, this might be the cup to start that. So I say cheers to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Cheers.
And I hope that the people that are listening have made their cup of tea. Oh, all right. Yep. Now I just relax, and it's like, okay, off we go. Start
Here we
that
go.
conversation. Okay, so Barbara, let's go back to the kinds of relationships you had early in your life that led you to the place where you are now. So they brought you forward to the skills and also what you offer to people through courses, workshops, and sessions. What is it that started for you to say, this is not the direction I want to go?
Well, it was back in 2014 that I suddenly realized that I had just experienced an entire decade of short, failed, painful relationships. So, and these were all nice guys because I don't date jerks, right? However, I saw that I was creating a pattern, and it only took me 10 years to see it. And when I looked back, I saw that all of these relationships were lasting only 3 or 4 months. And then I would decide that, okay, he's not the right guy for me. And I would just break up with him, usually blindsiding him because he didn't know there was anything wrong. I was not good at communicating my needs back then. And I didn't even honestly know what my needs were. So I had to figure that out. And the other pattern that I saw emerging over these short relationships over the decade was that I was consistently becoming either the masculine or the mommy in my romantic relationships with men. And I didn't want to be either of those things. And really that, along with my Midwestern work ethic, took a toll on my health. And I was in the depths of adrenal fatigue. I was 41 years old. And I was recognizing that my window to be able to have children was closing very quickly. So I saw these patterns and I decided it was time to do something about it. I was living in Hawaii at the time, and there was a workshop that was coming up, and myself and a bunch of my girlfriends attended this workshop where we were taught all different ways that men think and process information and how different it is for women. And it really just opened my eyes on how my behavior in the relationship was really bringing out the worst in these men. Again, they were all nice guys. And I just wasn't getting the result that I wanted, right? The short relationship with the painful ending, the masculine or the mommy coming out, and then the toll that was taking on my health, not to mention, not being able to start a family. So after that workshop, I really put some of the tools into place, listening differently to men, speaking differently, understanding more about where they come from and not making them wrong for it, It's a little bit like sometimes with our expectations, they can, especially if they're invisible expectations, if we haven't communicated them, then it can be a little bit like asking a horse to meow. It's just, it's a poor expectation, and nobody's going to be happy with that. So when I put these tools into practice, my relationships with men completely changed. And my very next relationship was the one that I'm still in. My husband and I have been together for almost 7 years now. Maybe it's over 7 years. 2015 is when we got together. And this relationship is full of love and intimacy and respect. I feel supported and appreciated, and he feels honored and respected. And it's the best relationship either of us have ever had. So I would say that this material works. It worked for me, and I know it's worked for lots of others as well.
Wow. I'm just thinking to the fact that, you started that at 41. So, did you recognize the same kind of patterns coming through your teens into your 20s and 30s, or it just started to materialize more, as you got to that place where you knew you wanted to have a family and those kinds of demands started coming forward for you?
Well, in my teens and 20s, I hadn't yet discovered personal growth. I've been doing personal and spiritual growth since about 1999. So really working on myself and examining my thoughts and beliefs and actions, because that's what creates the results in my life. Nobody is responsible for that other than me. And I wouldn't have had that maturity level in my teens and my 20s, much less the personal growth knowledge that I have now. And when we're that young, I tend to see we think that we're bulletproof, we're invincible, we have forever. I certainly wasn't interested in having kids in my 20s. I did actually get married in my 20s, and my first husband and I were together for 5 years. And then I had a few other relationships too that were 3 years here and there, maybe 4 years. And then there just began this time in my, I guess it was my early 30s, that I was creating this result over and over again. However, it took a while for me to see it. I think it was Steve Jobs that said, we can't connect the dots looking forward, we can only connect them looking backward. Right. So I think looking for patterns is the great way to say, wait a minute, why do I keep, I kept being in the same relationship with a man with a different name and a different face. But it was like Groundhog Day over and over again. So no, in my 20s, I wouldn't have seen that pattern, and I wouldn't have been mature enough to take personal responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm. And that's really an interesting statement to be able to make too, to accept the responsibility for it. Because I think so often we just slough it off to the next part, or like you said, blame the other person, and they have nothing to do with it really.
Yep.
So, yeah. Wow. Okay, so as you came forward and you went to make the changes that you've made, I'm thinking about that final catalyst. What is that final piece that says, okay, now it's got to be different? So you chose to sign up for the workshop with your girlfriends. Mm-hmm. So was there the opportunity of that support network that led to you, yes, taking that workshop? And then the second part, you went to the workshop, but a lot of people do workshops and then they go back to their old patterns. They don't actually move forward, but you decided to move forward. I'm just curious then if, having gone with your girlfriends, that created that space for more people to have conversation with and to be able to move you forward.
Absolutely. My network when I lived there, again, I was living in Hawaii at that time, and all of my friends were into the same personal and professional development work that I was into. So we were good at coaching each other and being able to hold up the mirror and say, wait a minute, if you keep creating the same result, you're the common denominator in your life. So we can't really point to outer circumstances and blame it on that. So it was great to have that support network and to be able to have people to process that with as well. And the urgency for me is I was 40, 41. I didn't know it at the time, but I was in the depths of adrenal fatigue. I knew I was exhausted all the time. However, I didn't even know about adrenal fatigue back then. And I really wanted to have a family, and I wanted to find Mr. Right. And I was smart enough to know I'm not just going to marry anybody and have kids by anybody, because then you're connected forever. So I was clear that it needed to be Mr. Right, not just Mr. Whoever. So that was really my my driving factor, my biological age, I would say, and just having the realization, when we have a breakthrough and when we gain a new level of awareness, then we're open to more choices. We have more choices available to us. And so that's when I learned the relationship tools that I did. I had the choice to implement those because I had the awareness of my own patterns. So through choice, I implemented those, and lo and behold, they worked.
Yay!
Yay! Hooray!
Which really, and two, people don't celebrate that, right? That, you know, they make the changes and things happen, and then, you know, to actually stop and say, I did that. I did that. I created the space. I did what I wanted to do, and I set out and accomplished. And I know a lot of people just kind of push it to the side, and that's almost our nature of don't acknowledge that I that I did something really well, because, you know, that would be vain to do something that way. But to be able to actually sit and look at it and reflect on it. So if we move forward to today and the empowerment that you have. I'm curious now how you think your future will flourish by the knowledge that you have gained from all of that.
Well, number one, just being in the best relationship of my life, you know, having found my person and my lifetime partner. And, you know, these tools they apply for all human relationships, right? It's not just heterosexual relationships, and it's not just romantic relationships. So I have been able to use this work to understand men and women, actually, to understand even myself on a much deeper level, even in the professional environment, in my businesses, working with my clients. So, and then I teaching is one of my passions. So I've been able to teach others some of this work as well. So that's been very, very fulfilling and rewarding for me.
Oh, it's beautiful. And do you have children now?
I have two amazing stepkids.
Mm-hmm.
And I came into their lives when they were in high school, and now they have completed college and they're out on their own and they're in great relationships and they're doing their first real job out of college things. So they're great. Actually, my stepson earlier this year got married to his college sweetheart. They own a home. So they're doing amazing. And my stepdaughter is finding her way as well. She's dating an amazing guy and is in her first post college job. So I wasn't able to physically have children of my own because of the adrenal fatigue and because of the age situation. However, I'm completely satisfied and looking forward to looking forward to some grandkids.
That's beautiful. And that's a whole other relationship walk, which is also there's no manual for that. So I look forward to what you bring forward from that with your experience. So you do coach others and you help them to understand the tools that they need. Do you want to talk a bit about what your program looks like and what people can look forward to with the knowledge you have?
Yeah, well, thankfully, my husband got into the personal growth work as well. And I introduced him to my mentor with the relationship work. And he was so supportive that when my mentor announced that she was for her final year, her name's Allison Armstrong, by the way. She's amazing. And it was back in 2018. She was doing her final year of her mastery program, which allowed us to get certified and licensed to teach and speak and write books and do whatever we want with the material after making it our own and doing our own research interviews. So I spent a year doing that. And then we all talked her into please doing one more year. So I spent another year doing another set of mastery. So I spent 2 years in that program with her. And what I did with that is I created these master classes that are online, these videos, and they are 16 very different topics. Some of them are about empowering women. Some of them are about empowering men. However, you learn a lot about both genders because the brain learns by the perception of the difference. Right. So when we can see the contrast and the difference between how wildly different men and women think and behave and what their needs are, then we can learn about ourselves as well as learning about them. So my husband was hugely supportive in me going forward with that path. I didn't know I would be going down that path. And it's just been so enriching. So I've got my master classes. I'm working on my book, my first book, which hopefully will come out this year. I'm working on getting it back to the editor now. And I also do coaching. So really, I don't have a specific program set up at this time. I only take on a few coaching clients at a time because I travel a lot. So I make sure to keep that at a manageable level for me, at a sustainable place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when people come to you as a one-on-one experience, I'm curious about that because my preference is group settings because I like the magnification of what happens in a group. So when someone comes to you to work on relationship one-on-one, do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like? Because that takes them out of the context of communicating in a group. So how does that approach work?
Right. So I do group coaching as well. And the one-on-one coaching is typically what I see in my clients. It's for singles or for couples. And so, for example, if it's a couple, then I would meet with each member, of the couple privately. And again, this doesn't have to be heterosexual only relationships. It could be any gender, any relationship structure. And meeting with them individually, finding out where they're at, where their needs are not getting met, helping them decipher what their needs are, because honestly, like most of us, don't know what our needs are. And then bringing them together and teaching them different ways to communicate, and even specific words and phrases to use that are important to the opposite sex that we never even think of, because we're looking at the world through our filter. I'm looking at the world through my filter as a female. I never knew the things and the words that were more important to men. So now I do, and that's part of what I teach my clients, and I coach them. I give them lots of tools to be able to enhance their communication, figure out what their needs are, and then encourage each other to meet each other's needs, which men are more than happy to do when we can just ask for it. And that's something that women don't know.
Wow. Yeah. And asking the right question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of us just go merrily along thinking we've asked the right question. Or I know you've talked about the subtleness, right? Trying to bring subtleness in doesn't work. People don't get subtle.
Yeah. Well, men, especially the male brain. So the male brain and the female brain are different. In fact, those are two amazing books that I incorporate into my work a lot. They're by Dr. Luann Brizendine, and it is called The Male Brain is one book, and The Female Brain is another book. So for people who are into the science and also want an entertaining read, I highly recommend those two books. So the subtleties. Now, I did a Valentine's Day interview on CBS one year. Don't, get what you want for Valentine's Day, ladies. Stop giving your man hints. Men don't pick up on the hints. They much prefer direct communication. And so if we can communicate in a way that they can hear it, then we can get our needs met and we can be happier. So that's what works.
Beautiful. Why do you think it would be important for people to even go down this avenue? People have been married for a long time. They say, oh, I know my spouse, we're celebrating 35 years or whatever. And how much more could I learn about this person? But, can you just speak to that fact of where people sometimes kind of sit in their relationships?
Yeah, sometimes when we're in a relationship for so long, yes, we might know that person in and out. However, do we really know how their brain works, even especially when it's the opposite sex? Mm-hmm. Because that's nobody ever teaches us that. We just assume that, these are my needs, or this is what I need. And so I assume that he does or doesn't need, the same things that I need. So that's a big assumption, right? And our communication over the years also, it can get better if we're consciously working on it. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by accident for both people to be open and honest. And when I say honest, I just mean, sometimes, especially with our men, sometimes they're afraid to tell us what they really think, or afraid to speak up because it's not safe for them. They're so often in trouble with us. So it's really just, it's looking at a different way. A lot of my work is based not only on the brain science, but also on human instinct. And so nobody teaches this stuff to us in school. So this work, you know, we learn a lot about ourselves. We learn a lot about the opposite sex, and we learn how to interact in a different way to get a different result. So I would say to the long-term couple, you know, if you're completely happy with the result that you're getting and communication and in the bedroom and in every part of life and in that relationship, then great. You know, if you've got any conflicts with family or coworkers or people that you don't understand where they're coming from, this work also helps with that. So it's really about if we want to change the result that we're getting, there's something that we have to change in order to create a different result.
And you brought up an important piece because I had mentioned, you know, for you waiting for that time to be a grandparent, as our roles change as we come through our different stages of life, so too does the way our relationships change. So even when you have good relationships with your kids, when they take on different roles, that changes all the dynamics in the family. And that goes back in the generations because great grandparents have a new role, aunts and uncles have a new role. Can you talk a little bit about how someone might be able to find support if that's the kind of shift that they're experiencing?
Into becoming a grandparent?
A grandparent or an
Yeah.
aunt and uncle, or relationship between kids and parents, and then now they're new parents. And
Yeah, that really changes the dynamic around. And sometimes, and I know I've been guilty of this as well, sometimes we think we know what's best for other people, especially if they're our children, even when they're adults. However, we're not the same people, right? We're not a carbon copy. And so what might be right for one person might not be right for their son or daughter. And so really honing those listening skills, knowing where people are coming from, again, with our survival instincts. It's one of those things that nobody teaches us. However, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you start to see it everywhere. So then, you know, okay, when this person's snapping at me, there's just something there's some sort of a survival instinct that's being triggered. Of course, their life is not at risk. However, the brain is operating kind of on the caveman, cavewoman level when it comes to just wanting to keep us alive, helping us survive. And that's why the brain tries to protect us from anything different. Anything new feels dangerous. So anything that's the same is safe as far as the brain is concerned. Anything that's new or different equals danger. Well, the problem is if we stay in that safe zone all the time, it's not we're not living our best life. You know, we're not growing, we're not expanding ourselves and our understanding of others. So every piece of the journey in life, certainly having children and going through that experience, you know, we are learning and growing so much right along with them. So I'm a very growth forward person. I think that I know how much it's helped me in my life, and I love sharing that information with others as well.
That's beautiful. And I love how across all the ways we interact with people, we have the opportunity to take that one set of skills in the one area maybe that we think is the challenged area, and then how it can trickle into all those other spaces. And we don't think about those relationships with colleagues or with groups that we belong to. That's just the way they are. And
right.
the way
Well,
it's always been.
For example, just a quick example, men and women experience respect. So every person experiences respect or disrespect in a different way. And so in the work environment, we could very well think that we are showing our boss or our colleagues or our team respect, and it might be the opposite for them. So until we sit down and have those conversations, that's a powerful conversation to have. And then when we can show up in a different way at work, and again, it works at home as well, or with our adult children, it can create a powerful conversation and just definitely a different dynamic when we understand what the other person needs and what their outlook is.
Beautiful. So how can people find you?
Well, my website is just my name, all three of my names, barbaracolesalmeron.com. And I've got a little pop-up there on my website, and I offer a free master class. I've taken my 16 master classes. I've taken some of my favorite pieces and put them together in a master class called The Top 5 Secrets to Relationship Success in just 5 minutes a day. So I'm really focused on giving tools that are easy to implement and can just change the needle in someone's relationship.
Beautiful. So they go to your website, that'll immediately pop up and they'll be able to access that free gift.
They just put in their email, and then the information will get emailed to them. It's about a 70-minute masterclass. I normally charge $97 for it. So I think it's a fantastic free gift. And then even when I'm coaching people, I would have them watch that first, because that gives the basis of what I teach and what I coach on. And then they can bring all sorts of questions, and we can start from a communication level of here instead of starting from down here. I don't want to waste my clients' time and money explaining to them what they could watch or listen to on a video. Let them listen to that, let them gain their understanding. And then from there, we can move into the coaching and see what questions they have.
Oh, that's excellent. So a lot of times too, it's trying to figure out if you have a rapport. So that gives them the opportunity to see how you teach, how you lead through different exercises, and get to know who you are. Because that's a huge part of what happens with any kind of coaching or self-empowerment workshops, finding that right person that resonates. So that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Is there anything that we missed talking about that you wanted to bring forward?
Well, I will share that just this last weekend, I had another big breakthrough. So I'm continuously growing. I've always said, yes, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher of many things for many years. The other business that I do that we didn't even talk about, I'm also a meditation teacher. I play the gongs. I teach people how to play the gongs, and I take that all over the world. And I'm constantly still growing myself, and I'm still learning. So yes, I'm a teacher. However, first and foremost, I'm always a student. And so this last weekend, I was in a personal and professional development workshop with Convergence Seminars. I was in Denver, which is where they started. And I had this huge breakthrough. So I was sharing with the group, I thought that my extreme care and concern for my family and my friends who aren't really open to personal growth. I mean, looking inside is difficult, and it's not for everybody. Not everyone wants to do it. However, I was coming from a place of, I care about them so much. And I just know that if they did this work, that their lives would be better. And the facilitator called me on it. He said, Barbara, that's not about care. That's about control. And it just hit me. And that's a pattern I've seen in my mom. Sorry, Mom, love you. However, that's about control. When Michelle, have you ever wanted something for someone more than they want it for themselves?
Yes, yeah. Many times.
Yeah, me too. That is about control. So when he said that and I started processing that, I cannot tell you it was a huge breakthrough for me that continues. This was just last weekend. Continues to unfold. And then he went a step further and recommended this book for me. And I've started reading and listening to this. And it has described my entire life, my periods where I've gone through exhaustion and burnout. And I was creating that by carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders and wanting growth for people more than they wanted for themselves. So in me being able to give that up, through what I learned at Convergence Seminars, and me being able to let go, right? As the book says, let go of that. I was able to experience so much freedom. I literally felt a spaciousness in my body. I told people the next day, I feel like I lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
So it was just, it's a huge
Mm-hmm.
breakthrough that is still happening for me. And I'm in contact with that facilitator because he's gracious enough to help me walk through this. And I'm excited to see for me what's on the other side of this, because for me, it's the next level. And after this, I know there'll be a next level.
Mm-hmm.
Growth is continuous for me in my
Mm-hmm.
life. So.
So the book you held up for those people on the podcast who couldn't see it
Yes.
is Letting Go, and the author,
Dr. David Hawkins.
yeah, I was sure that's what you were holding up.
The same author that wrote Power versus Force. Some people might be familiar with that. So when he showed me the picture, when the facilitator showed me the picture of this book on his phone, said, hey, get this book. So I did. I was hoping it was as small and thin as Power versus Force. It's not. It's pretty
It's
big.
thick.
However,
Yep. I have many corners turned on it.
it's so great. I've even got 2 different colors of highlighters in there. And it's describing to me my experience, and it's describing to me how to get to a place of freedom. Because what I'm noticing is then it frees up so much energy in my body, and I can be more loving instead of judgmental. I didn't know I was judging. I was judging my family, and I was judging my friends for not wanting to do the things that I did. Right. Which is funny because in my relationship classes and coaching, I teach people, don't expect others to be the same as you. So it took me a minute to get that message. However, now that I have, I'm really running with it.
I think one of the things for me over the years is it was because of a certain family member, it was because of a relationship piece that happened that sent me in search of certain information. And that was to support them. Yeah. But exactly what you're talking about, they don't want the information and they don't want the assistance. Then you didn't ask them that question.
Right. At first it's asking.
Yeah.
Exactly. So first it's about asking, like, can I support you with that? Or can I, and I've had to draw healthy boundaries in my friendships, because my friendships come to me with a problem. I automatically want to jump into coaching mode with them. Well, maybe they don't want that. Maybe they want to listen, be listened to. Maybe they need something different. However, I wasn't asking that question. I was just jumping in and coaching them, and then just not having healthy boundaries there at all. So I'm still a work in progress. I'm 48 as of right now, and I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I'm still making mistakes. I had to apologize to someone yesterday for a mistake that I made. So it's about owning it. It's about, if I want to create different results in my life, I got to do something different. So that's, I'm always looking on how I can improve in that way.
And I've taken some of where I've taken those steps to be of assistance, and it's not required. I've taken those as the opportunity, though, to build the repertoire so that should someone else come to me with the same kind of question, which happens a lot, then you're ready. You're ready with information and opportunity. And but at that point, you do have somebody that's ready to listen. So sometimes I look at the relationships of friends and family as they're those people who provide us with the impetus to go and search, even though it's not for them.
Absolutely. It's likely not for them. For me, it's funny you say that, because about 2 or 3 years ago, I was doing some research for a friend on something that I thought she should do. And because I was doing it and having such great results, and I found out a couple of things about myself that I didn't know. And it was some really important information, and it was just accidentally, and it was a completely unrelated topic. However, the article I was reading just completely fit with where I was at. So my research really didn't have anything to do with her. Like you said, it was the impetus. And that sent me on a whole nother path of growth and understanding my health on a different level.
So as people are listening and reflecting on what avenues you take and how you take it, it is important to think about, if you go forward to look at relationships, it's not to fix the other person. So it's not so you'll know more to help them, but it's really to bring it around to the other side and to take that time inside. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Barbara, as we close up, do you want to suggest a movement pattern, either that you like to do every day or that you recommend to people as they're doing some of this work?
Well, movement, it's so important to do something that you love, right? So for some people that's dance, for some people that is running. For me personally, I get recharged when I'm in nature. So even if I just take a walk, I've got a park a few blocks here from my house, and just taking a walk and being in nature and being surrounded by the trees. And I'm one of those, I like to kick my shoes off and walk barefoot in the grass and feel the earth's energy there. However, it's really important to just do whatever kind of movement works for you, and whatever we enjoy, we're more likely to stick to. So for me, it's kind of a double whammy because I'm exercising. If I'm going for a long walk, I'm amongst nature, and then I'm usually listening to an audiobook or a podcast as well. So it's the multitasking. So I'm really getting three things accomplished at once that boost my health and my energy and even my self-esteem or my knowledge base.
Excellent. I was thinking about theme songs when I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about the programming and things. So for people that maybe have a theme song, or maybe they don't have a theme song, and it could be a nature song, it could just be listening to the birds, but you might also have that earworm that kind of pops in, that maybe that's a mantra that you live by, or choosing a song that has some phrasing in it that when you repeat it to yourself, it really starts to resonate. So my encouragement would be, go do the movement that makes you happy. Dance in the kitchen. That's a common one, particularly in Cape Breton, because a lot of us step dance in the kitchen. But if you're in the kitchen, being able to put that music on, maybe you have the opportunity that you're by yourself. You can bellow those words out loud and really bring the phrase in. So I would invite people to find that space that they can really let go and be who they want to be, and let the music and the song of nature come and sing in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Barbara, for just an insightful conversation, but also an inspiration to not sit in who you are. Just be, another friend had said to me this week, be curious. Yeah. And as she's moved into her 60s, curiosity leading forward, what else? What if? What could I change? What could be different? I appreciate the way that you look at things and how you're bringing it forward for people. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on your podcast. And I hope that something that I've said benefits someone else, because that's what I'm here to do. So whoever's ready to pick that up, pick it up.
Beautiful. Okay, so we are in season 3, devoted to the transformational process that happens when people reach into their authentic selves and choose to create some magic. And our season has several different focuses within the month. We hope they inspire and empower you to consider living your true heart's desire with love and compassion for others at the forefront. And today, with Barbara's input, it's put yourself with that compassion at the forefront. So thank you for joining us. This is Be Well with Michelle Greenwell, and I wish you well-being.